Okay, okay. So I don't sit down until I say the nominee can ask questions I can't that are listed on the agenda. I'll go sit down. And then, okay, let's start this thing.
Sure. Where's your gavel?
I don't think I need it though. Smile for the cameras though. Good evening and welcome to RMA's 2018 Candidate Night. I'm Alex Bauer and I'm the chair of the nominating committee this year. And I'd like to introduce and thank the nominating committee for their service this year. On my left is Nancy Pohl, Renee Bechtold, and Les Kuntz, and then our staff member is Denise over there. So I want to thank them for their time and efforts in putting this together. But our attention is, of course, going to be in front of us over here this evening. So I want to introduce each of the candidates, and then I'll call on each candidate 3 minutes to tell us something about themselves. The candidates are from left to right: Danny Carrillo, Cheryl McElhaney, and Larry Shelton. And this is where it says in my script that I was going to say, let's all give the candidates a hand. And just a quick comment about that. I would ask that you hold your applause and your hissing or whatever until the end until the end of the evening, and we'll give everyone a nice robust set of applause. Again, it is great that they're running and want to serve the community, and I think we want to honor and respect that. After each candidate speaks, the nominating committee will ask the questions. After the questions are asked, we'll take a 10-minute break while the nominating committee reviews the audience-submitted questions. You have cards there. You can submit your questions. Denise, where would they bring those questions? Okay. Okay. All right. The nominating committee will then we'll go into the back room there and determine which questions will get asked of the candidates. So write some good ones, and then after the break, we'll come out and ask your questions. Okay, so let's start the introductory statements from each candidate. Candidate Carrillo, you have 3 minutes, please.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Danny Carrillo. Been part of this community for over 40 years. I've been in almost every demographic category of this community. By that I mean I was here as a teenager, I was here as a college student, I was here as a married couple, I was here as a parent, and I'm soon here be as an empty nester. My parents, my in-laws, both reside here, and I'm now happy to say that there's 4 generations of my family living within the gates of Rancho, Murieta. I met and married my wife here, raised our daughter here, and what does that have to do with my candidacy? To me, it shows a sense of commitment to the community and shows I have a viable stake in preserving and enhancing our community. My qualifications: I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, concentrated in real estate and land use affairs. I'm currently employed as a peace officer in the capacity as a correctional counselor. I'm involved in weekly classification committees, gathering, organizing, analyzing, and making recommendations. Skills I feel possess an affinity to the tasks of a board member. I also bring integrity, fairness, and common sense. I humbly ask for your support in becoming a board member to promote making this great community even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McElhaney, you have 3 minutes, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Cheryl McElhaney, and I'm running for another term on the RMA board. I have served the board for 3 years, and I have been highly involved with my fellow board members to bring about changes and improvements to our community. Some of those improvements have been a monthly newsletter we now have. We've gotten a trail map that's been approved, and there's a constant focus for adherence on our mutual benefit agreement as it applies to proposed development. I now have the experience and historical perspective that is needed on our board, and as we face the many challenges that are presented with our community as it grows. I have 34 years' experience in public education as a teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent. I've also been an adjunct professor at University of Pacific and Sac State. I have extensive experience with 4 public school boards, 2 nonprofit boards, and dozens of appropriation, facilities, communications, and architectural committees. I also have owned condos and townhouses and served on the HOA boards for that. So I have some experience on other HOAs. I've gained more experience while serving on our board because I have been serving as treasurer, and I have chaired the finance committee, and I did chair the communications committee and I am now also doing the parks committee. I remain committed to RMA's standards to keep our property values strong and future development aligned to our mutual benefits agreement in the areas of density, traffic mitigation, and annexation requirements. I'm interested in seeing our community grow in its amenities, such as completion of all the parks facilities and finding resources for a community center with a modern aquatics and fitness center. I fully recognize our demographics are shifting and residents' priorities are changing as well. I will work hard with our RMA staff and our board to address any and all concerns to keep Rancho Murieta thriving and the special place that we all cherish and appreciate as strong as it is today. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Shelton, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. I chose to spend this time instead of talking about me, and I hope all of you already know what I stand for in the community. If not, I'm sure that you will educate yourself as time goes on. I would rather talk about some of the issues I think that we have that are very important. In the next few years, the water rights that Rancho Murieta has allotted to them by the state will be renegotiated. This is a critical time for us, all of us, including our property values and our well-being could be affected. It is essential that our leaders have a strong background in water resources management to guide us through this period. The state is proven to be very stingy when they reissue future water allocations, and we haven't necessarily proven that we need to protect our water well enough. Based on my education and background, I'm prepared to take that challenge.
Okay, thank you. The nominating committee will now ask the questions of the candidates that are listed on the agenda.
Okay, first question is to Danny. Why do you want to serve on the RMA Board of Directors?
Well, I'm a firm believer and you have to practice what you preach. And I've always had the sense of telling people that you need to serve your community. So now, for the first time, I have the opportunity to serve my community. I've lived in here for a long time and have never had really the opportunity due to being consumed with providing for my family. I feel that now I'm in a perfect position to serve this community, and by that I mean I now have the time to flex my hours at work, and my family is pretty much self-sufficient, and I now have that desire to be an active participant in helping guide our great community in a positive direction.
Thank you. Cheryl, same question.
When I came on the board 3 years ago, I initially ran because I felt that the association was truly one of the most influential governing boards that we have to make sure that our standards and our home values stay strong. And so I felt that that was really necessary to get on a board and have some influence in that area. I was the only woman on the board at the time. And so I was really also feeling that we needed a little balance on the board, and I was happy that I got elected. I'm so happy that I have 2 more women on the board now that have joined me, and I just feel that we've created some balance in our board. I want to do another 3-year term to see some of the projects that I've begun completed. For example, we are going to be implementing a new website, and I have been very instrumental in working on that, and that will be coming in 2019. I'd like to see our parks projects finished. People think they're finished, but they aren't finished. And so I'm very dedicated to seeing that that be completed. And of course, I want to continue the focus on responsible development. So I think that's going to be very important for us in the future.
Thank you. And Larry?
Yes. There's so much more as a director that I would like to accomplish. And some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, and some of them I've already talked about with you and others. The knowledge that I've gained while serving on the board for 3 years and 2 years as vice president have given me an invaluable background in understanding how RMA functions and what our needs are for the future.
Thank you. The next question is first to Cheryl. What are the most pressing issues facing the community, and what solutions would you propose?
I feel like the most pressing issues facing our community all seem to be related to growth and development. For example, I feel that changing demographics, that security, traffic, and maybe they're all products of growth and development. So RMA, I feel, must give priority attention to the challenges of proposed development with the goal of encouraging and requiring responsible development that adheres to our legally binding agreements, our CC&Rs, and protects our environment and quality of life. RMA should also be continuing to look for ways to enhance our community with infrastructure upgrades, maybe revisit the community center concept, and work more closely with our community agencies and organizations to create partnerships that would work towards implementing worthy community projects. Right now we have some great models. RMA and Summerfest work really well together. We've got a great model of 2 organizations working well together. RMA and CSD in working on improving the lakes and the kind of things that we have to do there is another excellent example of it. And RMA and ETC have worked well together for many years. And so I feel that these are examples of community partnerships, and we need more of them.
Thank you. Same question to you, Larry.
Something that's been in the news a lot lately here is security. And I suspect that, like everyone else, I feel that that's one of our one of the strongest things that we could work on in the future. One of my first comments as a board member 3 years ago was about the lack of security. And now with the public's emphasis, we have been doing something. We have been enforcing moving violations, and we've achieved much success. I expect that additional improvements will be made if we continue the same level of enforcement. But as I said in my opening statement, I think probably our biggest issue is going to be our water and protecting not only the quality but the quantity of water that we have. An environmental report that was prepared by CSD a couple of years ago and sent to the county basically said we have plenty of water going forward in the future. That report did not use actual data to project the future of our water supply, and it did not include the current warnings of effects of climate change and drought. So I think one of the major issues that we RMA has is to work with CSD to revise that report and preserve our water rights.
Thank you. And Danny, same question to you.
I see the issue as being the growing lack of collaboration between the community entities and not always tending to work with one another. The solutions I see is more open dialogue, constructive debate, and the election of members who are more receptive to these ideals and who have no self-serving agendas.
Thank you.
This question is to Larry. How do you see your role as an RMA board member, and how do you envision your interactions with respect to other RMA board members, other community leaders, and RMA staff?
You know, I think it's pretty simple. All of us as board members need to make the best decisions possible for our community. And I feel that we are doing that. I think we need to continue to improve on our communications with our community and to consult with experts and other board members and staff and our residents. And we're working hard to do that by establishing open communication. We're establishing a new link to access information we're putting out and get information from the public, and I think that's critical for board making the correct decisions in the future.
Thank you, Larry. Danny? Same question.
Okay. How do I see my role? I see my role as a fresh, new, innovative voice in the community. I see my role as having a neutral position with no self-serving agenda. I see my role as a collaborator, bringing an open mind, being an active listener, a participant in constructive debate, a sense of fairness, a sense of mutual respect, and above all, common sense approach.
Thank you, Danny.
Oh, one more. And as a watchdog over our finances, bidding practices, and accountability for expenditures.
Thank you. Cheryl, same question?
My role I see as one of 7 people with a bit more experience maybe, and just because I've been there for a while, but very committed to listening to all the viewpoints and working towards consensus on all, or as much as possible, all the issues. My interactions with them, I'm committed to professional, respectful, and friendly interactions at all times. I'm very committed to building strong, productive relationships with other community leaders as much as possible.
Thank you.
Danny, we'll start with you on this question. If elected, how would you respond if a neighbor or friend approached you with a complaint or issue?
I would respond with humbleness and respect, as an active listener to their issues, with an open mind, assist in defining their issues, and then to direct them to the most appropriate resource available.
Thank you. Cheryl, same question?
If a neighbor or friend has a complaint, I think all want to be listened to, and so it's very important to hear them out. But right after that, I would try to help them understand that they really need to voice that complaint to the appropriate staff member or department. And so I would encourage them to do that, and I would promise them then that I would contact that person or that department and let them know that that concern or complaint is coming in. RMA has a policy that they will return all calls within 24 hours whenever possible. And so I would expect that they would get that attention as soon as they submit that kind of a complaint.
Thank you. And Larry, same question?
And my answer is pretty much the same as Cheryl's. I would recommend that the person who has an issue or a complaint should immediately contact staff. And I can tell you they are very responsible, as Cheryl has mentioned. And if necessary, the staff will bring those concerns to the appropriate committee and or for the board's resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. For our final question, we'll start with Cheryl. What are your expectations of CSD security?
CSD Security's goal is to protect lives and property. That's written in their agreement. And secondary is to observe and report. And these are areas that we use our violations and our enforcement through RMA to carry on. And so I feel that CSD has been in a bit of a transition with some of our officers, and so there may have been some areas that are going to need to be worked on with communications and improvement, but my expectations are is that they will work on them, that I believe that they are very dedicated to these kind of things to be improved upon, and I think that they're doing a great job. I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you. Larry, same
Was
question?
that going to get more interesting with the next sentence? I think basically, right now, CSD would prefer to only be a gate operator. I'm not convinced that anything else is really in their jurisdiction. RMA actually has them patrol for HOA violations for our CCNRs, but it's only because we have asked them to add that to their operation. And CSD is very limited. They don't have an awful lot of authority. Their officers aren't secured to carry guns and to use them and to protect people. So that is, as Cheryl mentioned, observe and report. And I'm not convinced that that's enough for our community. I'm convinced that we need more than that. You and I can observe and report and not necessarily need their assistance to do that. I do expect the newly formed reformed, it's been active in the past, the security committee that is going to operate between CSD and RMA is going to better define the roles that CSD and RMA both do for security. I think what we need is to explore other possibilities, including outside patrols, and to protect and secure the community the way we really need security. We don't have as much security as people outside the gate, in my opinion. The sheriff and the highway patrol tend to think that we have our own security, so they ignore us an awful lot and think that we can be taken care of with what we have internally, and that's just not appropriate. And unless we want to move into a different direction and get more training and pay a lot more for our security that we currently have. But I do think we have other options, and I think this committee will find a resolution to those.
Thank you. And Danny?
One of my main reasons for even coming and remaining in the community has been the security. Working in law enforcement, you don't want to come home to what you just left. So with that being said, I'd like to see from the security to be fair, firm, and consistent. I'd like to see them to be responsive to our needs, and I'd like them to work with the spirit of the law more so than the letter of the law. And I'd also like to have continued open communication with the board, with the public, and with other law enforcement entities.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the candidates for their answers. And I also want to thank the audience. You guys have been great so far. In fact, you guys have been so good, we're going to take a 10-minute break so you guys can help yourselves to some food back there. And we're going to collect your questions if you have any written questions. And so take a couple minutes to socialize, grab something to eat or drink. And we're going to come back with the second half of the audience questions in about 10 minutes. So,
Do you want to speak closer?
don't go anywhere.